G'day guys, Kerry here, and I guess a relatively simple review. This is the Garmin Xero C1 Chronograph. You'll have to excuse me, it's Guy Fawkes night, so there's probably a few bangs in the background. I've been looking at having a play with one of these for a while, and I saw Kane from KT Services talking about it in one of the Facebook groups, and said, hey, would love to try one out. Can I borrow yours basically and have a play with it? And good man that he is, sent it over for me to have a play with, and I took it out to the range to set up a couple of client rifles. So normally when I go out and set the rifles up, I always run a chronograph there and gather data, because some guys get me to do charts, or I'm getting data for their CDS dials for the Leopolds. And it normally means I'm taking a big Nanook style, like big box out, which has got my lab radar in it and the battery pack for it, and I take a tripod out as well to set it up. So it's a little bit of a rigmarole, which I've been doing for years. It's been fine, and the lab radar has actually served me really, really well. But all of that gets essentially replaced with this little unit. It has its own rechargeable battery in it. It has a little tripod on the bottom of it that if you want to run a bigger one, you can use a big size one, but this is perfect for sitting on the bench, or if you're shooting prone, just directly in front of your rifle. So if you're familiar with the chronographs, the lab radar was the first that sort of came through and revolutionized chronographs, in that it replaced the traditional optical style chronographs like the Olas and all the other derivatives of that. The optical chronographs, well, what we had, they were awesome, but they were very susceptible to issues with light. So sunny days, overcast days could affect it, and also you were essentially shooting over them, having to shoot over them, which meant that if you wanted to set one up, the range would have to be closed and someone would be up there trying to set the chronograph up. And I remember days of a deer stalkers while everyone's waiting to start shooting again, and someone's faffing around with a chronograph in front of a line and everyone had to wait, and so on. Occasionally someone would shoot one as well. So these came along, and first in the form of a lab radar, and it was essentially a Doppler radar. So it's a similar to a speed camera that the cops you see hanging around with. Essentially it's radar. What it meant is you could set it up next to your firearm. You didn't have to go forward of a line, so you could turn up while other people are shooting, set up, shoot over top of it, be finished, have the thing packed up, and not have to wait for that cycle. They were probably easier to use and more accurate. It was less dependent on the weather. So if it was raining or it was overcast, or you're indoors for certain things under fluorescent lights, they're just a little bit more consistent. And they were great, but the lab radar was and is huge. So this thing comes along, so much smaller, and literally the setup, you plunk it next to your firearm. I think they say 5 to 10 inches basically to the side and to the back. New session, rifle, pistol, bow, air rifle. What expected velocity? Do you want to enter the weight? No, I don't. Done. Start shooting. So unlike the lab radar, this is triggered by a projectile entering into the radar cone. It's not acoustically triggered, which was with the lab radar, the issue was that acoustic trigger, which you often have to use, but actually you always have to really use if you're using a suppressed firearm, would get triggered by other guns on the firing line. It would get triggered by the wind occasionally as well, so you get all these false readings on it as well. So in my limited time with this, didn't have any of that issue. I had a guy just next to me, shooting a suppressed, I think it was a suppressed 308, I'm not quite sure. He had one of these as well, so we're both just running our own chronographs. I didn't get any triggers off him, like false triggers off that while he was shooting. It was really simple and easy to use. So there's not really any downsides. If you're looking at a chronograph and getting a chronograph, it seems to be a no-brainer that you can just go get one of these. You know, I'm going to plug Kane at KT Services again. There'll be a link, you can go get him through him, he sells them. There is a new version very similar to this that LabRadar themselves are putting out, but to be honest, you know, I've read a few reviews of it, and basically they're sort of late to the party, and the LabRadar, my original LabRadar, has never really worked with the app like it should have. Never really had much in the way of updates. It's sort of like it's always been perceived as a dead duck, and they've really almost seemed like they've only put it out, or they've had to get us out now that Garmin have kind of done their release to the market, and LabRadar are playing catch up. So yeah, a few more details. You know, I mean, if you want to get really technical, jump on the Garmin site and read the specs and everything. If you're not sure whether you need a chronograph, you possibly don't. If you do need a chronograph, get the Garmin. I mean,